So you've heard of the Milgram experiment.
No.
Let me walk you through it. Okay. This is 1962 at Yale University. And they do a study. They put an ad in the paper and they say, we're doing a study on learning and psychology. And if you come in and volunteer for this study, we're going to give you like a lunch voucher or something like that. So all these people volunteered. So let's say you're doing the study and you take it and you go up in this hallway, you meet this guy, the guy in the lab coat, and there's another volunteer there and you draw straws. The other guy draws the learner straw and you draw a straw that says teacher on it. And they say, all right, you're going to sit down here and I'll summarize it. But the guy's in the room next to you with the door shut, and you're going to sit down at this machine and you're going to read this quiz. And for every question he gets wrong, you're going to shock his ass. You're going to deliver an electric shock. So you walk in there with him to begin the experiment. You watch him getting strapped down into this machine. And they even let you test the shocker on yourself.
I have heard of this. I read about this somewhere.
Yeah. And every time they get a question wrong, you shock them. But not only that, you're going to grab that little knob and move the voltage up. So if you move the knob all the way to the far right, it says XXX danger severe shock. So you start the experiment. The guy says he's got a heart condition, and you can hear him screaming when you hit this little shock button through the wall. You can hear him go ah. You can hear these little screams, and every time you're moving it up, and sooner or later he says, "I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to continue. I'm out of here. I have a heart condition. I told you I had a heart condition. I want to leave. I want to stop right now." And all these people would kind of like turn back to the guy in the lab coat, like, what do I do? And the guy in the lab coat, almost every time would say something as simple as, "It's important that you continue," or "the experiment requires that you continue." So they keep going and keep going and keep going. They're up to like 300 volts now. And at around 350 volts, every sound in the room across the wall stops. No more sound. And they shock. And then he stops answering questions altogether. There's no response to these questions because he's pushing this little button that indicates like A, B, C, D. And you turn around to the guy in the lab coat again. The guy in the lab coat says, "Any non-answer must be treated as an incorrect answer. Please continue." And they kept going. And they kept going, shocking what they assumed, which was an actor. The other guy in the other room's an actor. Mm-hmm. But they assumed that this is a real person. They're suffering and maybe unconscious at this point. They wanted to stop. They asked to stop. So before this experiment started, all these psychologists got together and they said, how many people are going to go through with this? And they said 0.07%, I think was the answer. They said anybody that would go through with this is a psychopath and wants to hurt other human beings. So the experiment concluded 67% of people went all the way. All the way. And 250 volts is enough to kill you based on amps, but 100% of people went up to 250 volts. 100%.
Wow.
And it's been replicated so many times. It's been over and over. People have replicated it in different environments and different changes. Some of the experiments, they physically made the participant hold the person's hand down on a metal plate that was shocking them. And they went back and they said, this is a study of obedience to authority, because this was during the Nuremberg trials going on. And with all of the former Nazis saying, I was just following orders. I was just doing what I was told to do.
Right.
So Dr. Milgram, his parents were Jewish. He does this experiment. Will people just do what they're told to do? And they thought that this was all about authority. So people are struggling right now all over the internet. You can see stuff like sales training mastery. Here's the influence mastery. If I can, in 40 minutes, I can talk a total stranger into committing murder, wouldn't you think that that's harder than selling him a car? And those people in the Milgram experiment, there was no secret hypnotic technique. They didn't inject them with some LSD or something before the thing happened. They didn't have some secret handshake, or they touch them a certain way or hypnotize them. No techniques, no methods. It was just how responsive our mammalian part of our brain is to authority. But they missed one element of that, which we can talk about later. But that's how incredible authority really is when it comes to influence and persuasion in human behavior. It's everything.
Right. Now, that leads me to a little bit what we were talking to before we started recording this podcast, talking about certain folks that see things going on in the world and automatically assume that this thing is some sort of psyop, right? Or some sort of psychological, like, for example, the guy Crooks, I think his name was, that tried to shoot Trump and got killed immediately afterwards, and then gets his identity scrubbed from the internet. Like, or you even have the guy who just murdered the healthcare CEO 2 weeks ago or a week ago, whatever it was. So many people love to jump online to immediately, like, this guy was a Manchurian candidate, or this guy was somehow co-opted by somebody in intelligence or the FBI or whatever and manipulated to do this. And it makes a lot of sense, and it's easy to draw connections to that kind of thing. But how much of that do you think is real or that goes on today in this day and age?
I think it probably still goes on. But I want you to, here's what the mistake a lot of those people will make, and I hope I don't piss them off by saying this, but it's not about the technique. A lot of people think, oh, you need all this training. I'm going to inject this person. I'm going to do secret messages into their brain using some machine or something like that. If I'm an authority in a person's life and I say, hey, man, you know what you need to do? You need to go do that. You go do that thing to that person. That's all it really takes. Because it's not about the right skills. It's about the ability to select the right target or to select the right candidate to perform the action. This goes all the way back to Bobby Kennedy, RFK's dad,
right?
And who was killed by a guy named Sirhan in San Francisco. And I believe that was on purpose, and I think that was very heavily influenced. I think he was influenced. He has no memory of the entire event. I went to the prison to sit down with Sirhan a few years ago. I booked a flight, got a hotel, had all these forms filled out, walked in the front door, handed over my driver's license to sign in and all that stuff. And they said, he's sick. He's not feeling well. He's sick. So I never got a chance to talk to him. But if you just look at it in terms of, am I selecting the right person to do this? It's 1,000 times easier. And you don't need some giant agency who's doing this. It's often not some agency. It's usually a group of people with a special interest.
Interesting.
So you don't need 50 years of hypnosis experience, even though there was most likely a hypnotist involved with Sirhan. His name was Dr. Joylin West.
Oh, yeah, Jolly West.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm familiar with him.